The following episode describes in detail the investigation of an unsolved abduction and murder case. Listener discretion is advised. Following a tip from a local hunter, part of a one-piece blue Nike bathing suit is discovered on Whiskey Hill near the Nenameseck Sportsmen's Club on Bacon Road in Palmer, Massachusetts. The finding launches a full-scale grid-by-grid search over 3 weeks along 8.5 acres of hillsides and wooded areas on both sides of West Warren Road in Palmer and nearby Ware. In early June, the intensive search produced a second significant finding, a human arm bone. Days later, 2 more arm bones and a shin bone are found, then a femur, 2 rib bones, 4 vertebrae. On June 9th, 2003, investigators found teeth. That same day, Worcester County District Attorney John Conte announced the arm bone they discovered in the woods matched the DNA of 16-year-old Molly Bish. Molly had been missing for 3 years. Welcome back to Unsolved Worcester. I'm your host, Dan Yeager. Today's episode is the final episode of Season 6 and is among the most well-known unsolved cases, not only in Massachusetts, but nationwide. On June 27th, 2000, 16-year-old Molly Bish was dropped off by her mom at Cummins Pond in Warren to work her lifeguard shift. Molly had just started the summer job 8 days earlier. When Molly arrives at the pond just after 10 a.m., the temperature is already approaching 80 degrees. It's going to be a hot day. Just minutes later, however, when swimmers arrived for swimming lessons and to cool off, there was no lifeguard on duty, just an empty lifeguard chair, a towel, a pair of sandals, a whistle, with a lunch bag, water bottle, backpack, first aid kit, and a 2-way radio nearby. Molly was nowhere in sight. She had vanished. The largest missing person search in Massachusetts history would begin hours later. Unsolved Worcester takes a deep dive every Tuesday into the unsolved murders and missing persons cases under investigation by the Worcester Police Department's Detective Unit and the Massachusetts State Police. Our goal is to remind residents of the Worcester area, both past and present, that there are dozens of unsolved homicides and missing persons cases that need resolution. We hope we can be the spark needed to solve a case. Be sure to visit Unsolved Worcester on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and listen to all episodes for free at unsolvedworcester.com and on your favorite podcast streaming platforms. Check out the video for this episode with exclusive aerial views and more on the Unsolved Worcester YouTube page. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Molly Bish had wrapped up her junior year of high school at Quabog Regional High School in Warren, just days before she started her summer job as a lifeguard at Cummins Pond. She was an honor student and an exceptional athlete. She played soccer, basketball, and softball. Molly's family described her as outgoing, caring, and funny. Molly would have turned 17 on August 2nd, 2000. Right before she would have started her senior year at Quabog, and then she would have been off to college. But the potential opportunities of her bright future were stripped away on June 27th, 2000. Due to a shortage of applicants, Molly was the only lifeguard hired that year to staff Cummins Pond. She wasn't at her lifeguard post on that early summer day when children showed up to Cummins Pond for their swimming lessons. One of the children's mothers called Molly's boss, Park Commissioner Ed Fett, to let him know there was no lifeguard on duty. Fett arrived to the pond around 11 a.m. to check things out for himself. He searched through Molly's belongings. About 45 minutes later, Fett called the police. Police showed up to Cummins Pond around 12:15 p.m., more than 2 hours after Molly disappeared. Initially, police assumed that Molly may have taken off with some friends, skipping out on her lifeguarding shift. But when they called Molly's mother, Magdalene, at 1 p.m., they quickly learned Molly wasn't the type to skip work. She was a responsible young woman who took her job seriously. It's about that time that panic and confusion took over at Cummins Pond. First, police thought maybe Molly had drowned in the pond, despite being a strong swimmer. State police divers searched the pond for several hours, but came up empty. Police closed the pond to the public as the investigation was underway. This first decision to investigate Molly's disappearance as a drowning would later come up as one of the most important missteps in the investigation. As divers, rescue teams, police, and others scoured the pond and beach area, and possibly destroying important evidence at a crime scene. It would be later that day when the police detective unit determined it may be a crime investigation and not a missing persons case. First thing the following morning, on June 28, 2000, a state police helicopter circled the area while troopers and citizens formed search parties to trek the wooded areas around Cummins Pond. The focus of the search quickly surrounded a single path in the woods connecting Cummins Pond to St. Paul's Cemetery, just north of the pond and beach area. Police theorized that whoever had abducted Molly could have easily dragged her up the path to a vehicle waiting at the cemetery. While police searched the path and cemetery area extensively, Molly's mother came forward with information about a man she had seen in the beach parking lot on June 26th, the day before Molly went missing. Magdalene said she hadn't thought anything of it at first, but remembered the man was sitting in a white car and was already in the parking lot when she was dropping Molly off for work. The man was sitting in the driver's seat of a white sedan smoking a cigarette. He was white and had a mustache, and was believed to be in his late 40s or early 50s. Magdalene said the man was watching her and keeping an eye on Molly heading toward her lifeguard chair. A sketch of the man was released to the public, and within a week, more than 1,000 tips were submitted to police. The most promising tip came from one of the town's residents who told investigators that they had seen a white sedan parked at the cemetery around the same time Molly had gone missing on June 27th. From that point forward, the investigation focused on finding the man with the mustache driving a white car. Further efforts in and around Cummins Pond to search for clues continued, however. During the months following Molly's disappearance, the town lowered Cummins Pond to give police a better opportunity to search the water for any evidence. A sonar scan of the bottom of the pond was also conducted. 600 acres were covered on foot by hundreds of people between Bemis Road to the east of Cummins Pond and Route 19 to the west. But the searches came up empty. By October, nearly 4 months after Molly disappeared, police were inundated with more than 5,000 tips from across the country. On the morning Molly Bish disappeared, June 27, 2000, she and her mother made 2 stops on their way to Cummins Pond. First, they went to the Extra Mart on Route 67 to grab a bottle of water, then stopped at the Warren police station to pick up her 2-way radio. Shortly after 10 a.m., Molly was dropped off at work. By late winter 2001, Investigations had determined that whoever abducted Molly had done it within a 5 to 10 minute window after she arrived at Cummins Pond. They believed the suspect had prepared and planned the abduction thoroughly. In March 2001, a sketch of the man Molly's mother had seen on June 26, 2000 in the parking lot of Cummins Pond Beach area was released to the public. This sketch, done by Gene Boylan, an American forensic composite artist, was completed after hours-long interviews with Molly Bish. Boylan created two versions, one sketch of the man and the other of the man smoking a cigarette, just as Magdalene remembered him. Shortly after the sketch was released to the public, state police detectives focused their investigation to one or two possible suspects, both from the Warren area. By June 2001, however, 13 people had been given lie detector polygraph tests in connection with Molly's disappearance. 7 of those people had failed the test. Worcester County District Attorney John Conte said that many people failing the test was unusual. Over the first year after Molly vanished, 125 cars matching the description provided by Molly Bish were searched. But for more than 2 years, the search for any signs of Molly came up empty. It wasn't until the spring of 2003 when the first possible break in the case came to fruition, after a retired law enforcement officer suggested there might be a connection between Molly's disappearance and the unsolved murder of 10-year-old Holly Peranian in nearby Sturbridge in August 1993. Holly had been abducted near her grandparents' cottage on August 5, 1993. 2 months later, her remains were found by a hunter nearly 9 miles away in Brimfield. We will explore Holly's case next season on Unsolved Worcester. Following the lead from the retired officer, police began questioning hunters in the area to see if they had found or seen anything out of the ordinary in the woods in Warren and Palmer. One hunter came forward, bringing up something he had seen the past fall, but he hadn't really considered to be connected to Molly until he spoke with the former officer. It was a blue one-piece bathing suit, similar to the one Molly had been wearing when she disappeared. In late May 2003, the search was underway for any new evidence in the disappearance of Molly Bish. Molly's bathing suit was discovered in the woods near Nenameseck Sportsmen's Club in Palmer, roughly 5 miles from where Molly was last seen at Cummins Pond. Massachusetts State Police troopers with canines and ATVs searched thoroughly over more than 8 acres of wooded area. After nearly 2 weeks of searching, the first significant find was made on June 3, 2003. At around 1:15 p.m., on a hillside of Whiskey Hill in Palmer, cadaver dogs found a human arm bone, determined to be from a person between the ages of 14 and 20 years old. Over the days following, more human bones were found scattered about 1,000 feet apart. In all, 22 bones are discovered. According to reports, the 22 bones recovered were all above ground. On June 9, 2003, it was official. The worst had come true. Investigators found teeth, and the Massachusetts State Lab identified the remains as those of Molly Bish. But with Molly's remains exposed to the elements for 3 years, investigators couldn't determine a point of origin or a cause of death. There were no bullet wounds or signs of blunt trauma. No weapons were discovered in the area. On August 2, 2003, on what would have been Molly's 20th birthday, she was buried at St. Paul's Cemetery in Warren. Molly left behind her mother Magdalene, her father John, her sister Heather, and her brother John Jr. Celebration of Molly's life was held at Mechanics Hall in downtown Worcester the day after she was laid to rest. With Molly's tragic fate now known, there was still a lingering question on the minds of her loved ones and law enforcement. Who was responsible? Since 2003, law enforcement investigating the abduction and murder of Molly Bish have received thousands of tips from the public, have followed hundreds of leads, and have interviewed multiple possible suspects. Of those possible suspects, there are 3 men that have been named publicly by investigators. First, police interviewed Rodney Stanger in 2008. He was 60 years old at the time. Stanger lived in Southbridge, Massachusetts in 2000 when Molly went missing. Southbridge is roughly 14 miles away from Cummins Pond in Warren. He was known to fish at Cummins Pond and hunt in the woods surrounding it and in the area where Molly's skeletal remains were found. According to reports, family members said Stanger had a violent streak. Stanger had a mustache, and back in 2000 he had a similar appearance to the description provided to police by Molly's mother, and family said he had access to his brother's white car. A year after Molly disappeared, Stanger moved to Florida. In 2008, Stanger stabbed and killed his girlfriend, Crystal Morrison, in Florida. In 2010, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. According to a report in the Worcester Telegram and Gazette, before Morrison died, she told her sister that she believes Stanger was responsible for the murder of Molly Bish. In 2009, while awaiting trial for the murder of Morrison, investigators questioned Stanger in connection with Molly's murder and the abduction and murder of Holly Peranian in 1993. Stanger is currently serving time at the Union Correctional Institution, Rayford, Florida. His release date is set for 2029. At the time of this podcast, he is 75 years old. In 2011, a second possible suspect emerged, Gerald Battisoni, a convicted child rapist from Ware. Battisoni was a confidential informant with the Eastern Hampton County Narcotic Task Force. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison on 2 counts of rape of a child in 1991. According to a report in Mass Live, Battisoni had lived near Cummins Pond in Warren. Like Stanger, Battisoni was also questioned in both the Molly Bish and Holly Peranian case. Battisoni attempted suicide in 2011 after his name was mentioned in the media outlets as a possible suspect in both cases. Battisoni died in custody in 2014 at Lemuel Shattuck Hospital. Finally, in 2021, the Worcester County District Attorney's Office named Francis Frank Sumner Sr. as a person of interest in the murder of Molly Bish. Sumner would be the first, and so far only, person of interest officially named by the DA to date. Sumner, who died at the age of 71 in Spencer in 2016, had operated several auto shops across central Massachusetts, including at Sumner's Auto Body in Worcester and Elite Auto Repair in Rutland. Sumner had been convicted of aggravated rape and kidnapping in 1982. He was sentenced to 15 to 18 years for rape and 9 to 10 years for kidnapping. While Sumner had children who lived in Warren, the most notable connection to Molly's case is how closely he resembles the composite sketch as detailed by Molly's mother. Additionally, due to the fact that he was working at an area auto shop at the time of Molly's disappearance, it is likely that Sumner had access to a white vehicle matching the same kind of vehicle Magdalene Bish saw in the parking lot at Cummins Pond. In 2022, Molly's sister Heather received word that DNA tests didn't match that of Sumner's, and evidence didn't show he had killed Molly. At the time of this podcast, however, the DA's office still profiles Sumner as a person of interest. The abduction and murder of Molly Bish has gained national attention over the past 2 decades. Her case appearing on Unsolved Mysteries more than once, and on Investigation Discovery's Disappeared series highlighting missing persons cases. Across social media, Molly has been the subject of hundreds of TikTok videos and Instagram posts, with influencers sharing theories and information about what happened to Molly. Molly's sister Heather Bish is very active on social media, advocating for changes on how police address missing person cases, for law enforcement to focus their efforts on closing Molly's case and find her killer, posting videos celebrating Molly's life, sharing details of Molly's case. Today, Molly's legacy and spirit endures through the Molly Bish Foundation, created by the Bish family shortly after Molly disappeared in 2000. The Molly Bish Foundation advocates for familial searching of DNA profiles in law enforcement DNA databases after other searches to identify a suspect come up empty, generate leads in cases, and help exonerate wrongfully convicted people. State Senator Ann Goby of Spencer and State Representative Tom Smola of Warren are currently pushing the legislative effort to fund a statewide database. The foundation also created the Molly Bish Lifeguard Safety Kit, a free toolkit for families that includes a booklet with their child's name, photo, description, and fingerprints in an effort to prevent children from being abducted. At Anna Maria College in Paxton, the Molly Bish Center for the Protection of Children and the Elderly provides training and hosts events for family and law enforcement members to address missing persons response. Over the past few years, the Bish family has requested multiple times for Molly's case to be transferred from the Worcester County District Attorney's Office to the Hampton County DA's office. Molly's remains were discovered in Palmer, which is located in Hampton County. In early June 2023, Worcester County District Attorney Joseph Early said his office still continues to get tips on Molly's case each week. According to a report in the Worcester Telegram and Gazette, Early pledged that the investigation will continue and is optimistic that Molly's killer will be named in the future. Thank you for listening. I'm Dan Yeager. Don't miss another episode. Click the notification button to get alerts when new episodes of Unsolved Worcester drop. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, please consider clicking the like button for us. And if you subscribe, the next episode will show up in your feed. Click the bell on the right and select all, and you'll get a notification of when the next episode is ready. Have any thoughts you'd like to share? Please leave them in the comments below. We do read them all and respond to as many as we can. Anyone with information on the murder of Molly Bish are asked to contact the Worcester County District Attorney's Office at an anonymous tip line at 508-453-7575 or by email at worcesterdaunresolved@mass.gov. Come back later this winter for the start of Unsolved Worcester Season 7. Be sure to catch up on all previous episodes at unsolvedworcester.com. Special thanks to the Worcester Public Library, the Worcester Police Department, the City of Worcester, and our sponsors for making this possible. Information on the Molly Bish case was gathered from multiple resources, including the Molly Bish Foundation, the Worcester County District Attorney's Office, Massachusetts State Police, the Worcester Telegram and Gazette, Mass Live, NBC, Patch, Hue and Cry, Stories of the Unsolved, Unsolved Mysteries, Investigation Discovery, Spectrum News 1, and more. The Unsolved Worcester podcast music is provided by Tom Lebelzik of the Worcester Jazz Collective. This episode is written and produced by Pat Sargent. Drone footage provided by Ron Scott at Chasing Daylight Studio. Videography and editing by Colin Turner. This program is supported in part by a grant from the Worcester Arts Council and the National Endowment for the Arts. To find out more about how National Endowment for the Arts grants impact individuals and communities, visit www.arts.gov.